morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. Phys.org published a headline that's guaranteed to capture people's attention. Scientists outline a bold solution to climate change, biodiversity loss, and social injustice. Oh my God, incredible. Finally, somebody's actually come up with a plan. Unfortunately, as pretty much everybody outside of kindergarten knows, you can't trust the headline. So let's dig down into this article. First of all, it's an international team of scientists led by Oregon State University. And they're using data from 500 years. Okay, good. At least you're not concentrating on one specific area. 500 years is good to base climate change off of, but the problem is humans have not remained the same in the past 500 years. I mean, I can put forth a pretty serious argument that humans have changed pretty substantially in the past 100 years. I mean, 100 years ago, the world was recovering from World War I, and goodness knows what other conflicts were going on in that time. I say that not to be disrespectful of them, but it was happening. So 500 years ago is the 17th century, the 1600s, when you had Shakespeare and Mozart composing. Yeah, it's not fair to compare climate emissions to Beethoven and Mozart. It's it's not the same planet. But you know what? We're going to give them credit because that's a hell of a survey to do. And it's a ton of data. It's a big skill set. Now I want to quote this directly from the article, which will be linked below. In addition to charting a possible new course for society, the researchers say their paradigm shifting, and that's in quotes, paradigm shifting plan can support climate modeling and discussion by providing a set of actions that strongly emphasize social and economic justice as well as environmental sustainability. Oh yeah, we can learn about that from the 1600s. And you notice they couldn't help but include a buzzword in paradigm shifting. Well, yeah, they shifted the paradigm. We're going to get to that. Let me see here. Then they're blathering on about their plan is basically achieving massive change through small, short-term steps. Again, this is a direct quote from the article. And we're offering a much needed contrast to many other climate scenarios which may be aligned with the status quo, which is working. Now this, I have no problems agreeing with the second part of it. The status quo is not working. And it's probably not because of the end users. It's probably because of all the multinational corporations who can stand to dump garbage overseas for people who are so desperate for money they'll take it. I find most people put out a recycling bin of various sizes, even a yard waste recycling bin. You know, people are willing to do, let's just say, something in order to support recycling efforts. But we know when that stuff goes to the municipal waste bin, well, first of all, I have heard of counties having to warn their constituents not to put dead animals into their recycling bins because, there's nothing they can do about those dead animals. But people still are not properly educated on what is recyclable and what is not. Secondly, some things just don't have the value in them to recycle. Copper, it's recyclable. That's why people are stealing it from construction sites and factories and you name it. Aluminum, you would think it would be recyclable. But aluminum prices really aren't that high. And cardboard, yeah, that's basically being recycled either as garbage. Well, a lot of the time it does wind up in the garbage. So we're not recycling that very much at all. Sad but true. Cardboard prices are just rock bottom, and it takes a lot of energy to go in and recycle it. Assuming that you're using some form of nuclear energy or, clean burning coal and stuff like that, that's unfortunately what's happening to a lot of what you're doing because recycled toilet paper, hey, go out. Look, it exists. 2 ply, 3 ply, any sort of ply that you want. And I've used it. It is equal to the regular stuff, but it costs a little more and it's not as easy to find out. So yes, I agree that our current state is is not going to get us very far. Now remember, these people are looking at 500 years of data and they come up with the genius observation that humanity's resource demands have exploded since 1850. Really? Wonder what happened around 1850. Oh yeah, trains. Trains got invented, started being put all over the place. And what do trains require for fuel? Back in those days, coal. We know coal, especially the different types of coal, burn differently. So, London, for a while, this is taught, well, used to be taught, I can't say presently, this was taught as a base example of evolution, where originally the trees were one color, and that would allow certain moths and butterflies to survive, but because coal was being burnt, the trees went to a darker color, so that allowed the darker colored butterflies and moths to survive. So, nothing radical there. That's one of the reasons that we switched to fuel oil and petroleum, is that it was amazingly less polluting than coal was. This is not in the article, but it shows us that we can manipulate our environment. Humans can make responsible decisions when they realize that coal is much less harmful and polluting than petroleum is. This is where the article starts to get controversial. It's the growth in human population, gross domestic product, and energy consumption, primarily reliant on fossil fuels, have led to an extraordinary surge in greenhouse gas emissions, dramatically altering land use and triggering a massive biodiversity decline. You know what I find interesting? The study doesn't contain a link. When you write an essay and you make a claim like this, you're supposed to source it. And they're not sourcing it whatsoever. So, hang on a second. Yeah, that's my wife bothering me. She loves to interrupt these things. Anyway, that's when you start asking yourself, okay, this is a standard plan, perhaps ramped up a little bit. Where's the social justice plan? Where are we elevating everybody in the world to equal rights and stuff like that? Well, they go through what they call SSPs, which kind of ramp societal developments and social progress together. And these are plausible developments that work together. They're based on, here, let me quote from the article again. They're based on 5 narratives that describe alternative socio-economic developments, some more sustainable than others. Our scenario focus on reducing the consumption of primary resources to a level that keeps environmental pressures within planetary procedures, with per capita GDP stabilizing over time. So, here's what they just said in a nutshell. Just by reducing the consumption of fossil fuels, it's going to make life better for everybody, magically. And SSPs are derived off of greenhouse gas emissions. So somehow by doing that, and they specifically quote, it's going to increase women's rights and women's education. No, that doesn't quite work. They also quote an article about 5 SSP paths that only lists 3. One is the status quo where everything remains the same, and other ones are more radical in their approach. The problem is we're still years away from any real alternative to fossil fuels, and even when we stop using fossil fuels, we're still going to need oil. Little product called plastic comes from oil. Little product called asphalt comes from oil. Those are never going to go away, unfortunately, in the current climate. And how me not using gas for the past several years and not using an electric car either impacts some girl in Somalia. Sorry, not trying to pick on Somalia in particular, just the first country that popped to mind. How that affects her life is beyond me. We, of course, want to make sure that little girl in Somalia is taken care of and fed and educated and all the important things. But how does me not using fossil fuels affect that? I'm still buying stuff that is plastic. I'm still buying stuff that's, you know, my exercise bike. Let's look at it. What is it made out of? Metal and plastic, mostly plastic. So even my means of exercising and getting around is still using plastic. And you know what? While I'm using it, I'm exhaling carbon dioxide. And that goes worldwide. The thing that scientists hate is that humans do have a great deal of control. London used to be famous for smog. But the Londoners did get together, and it did take time, and they've reduced that amount of smog. Mostly by reducing fossil fuels and making sure that they weren't wasting gas and electricity. And when I say gas, I mean like the gas that they use for stove burners and for the lights and stuff like that. When they did that, the smog started dying down. London is 100 times better than it used to be. Magically increasing the GDP somehow by restricting people by doing certain activities it's like waving a magic wand. It's like saying, here we go. If we make more money available in the world, then that's going to trickle down and affect everybody. And this is the fundamental flaw in this entire process. Yes, it sounds good. Nobody wants a dirty environment. Nobody wants to hand a dirty environment over to our kids. And we come back to the same problem. This plan somehow supposes, and this is not explained in the actual article, nor in the summary that I'm reading from. It's just, if we get more money, then more of it will magically appear in people's pockets. We have more billionaires than ever in the modern age. And we have a substantial amount of poor people, not just nationally, but worldwide. Trickle-down economics was proven wrong in the 1980s. As much as I respect President Reagan, he got off on the wrong foot there. It was completely the wrong one. This is a lovely plan for the environment, but for some reason they decided to tack on social justice onto it, trying to hit all the buzzwords. And indeed, we need a richer planet, as I've demonstrated. We need a richer planet to be able to afford more resources. Let's leave aside our Somalian girl at the present time, and I'm saying girl for a reason, because she still has her life in front of her, and she could become a doctor, she could become an astrophysicist, but anything is open for her right now. We want to make sure that she gets a good start on life. We want that for every child in the world. I don't think there's a single person listening to this broadcast that would disagree with me there. We also need the people on our own streets to get ahead in the world. And we're not seeing that in this report anywhere. Just magically reducing fuel somehow increases GDP. Well, what about all those specialized workers? What about all those people who, have spent their lives training just to do, you know, well, truckers running oil could probably get a job at another trucking agency. Whereas, the people doing the pipes, the pipe fitters, welders, all those people, it's a lot harder because there's only so many places you can get a job. So there's more likely to be an economic impact from this situation, is what I'll call it, this study, than there is to be a net economic growth. Don't worry about the billionaires. They're going to be fine. They haven't seen a situation they couldn't make a profit from somehow. The GDP of the world may change, but it's not going to affect Elon Musk. It's not going to affect Mark Zuckerberg. It's not going to affect any of those big time players. They'll be fine. But how does it affect, again, the little girl in Somalia who just wants to go to school, have a belly full of food, and some water to drink? None of the 3 SSPs instead of the 5 SSPs, which are, social plans, have anything to do with that little girl or her friends or her family or anybody. And that's the distressing part. I was really hoping that this would have some sort of sustainable plan. But unfortunately, it was planned by physicists. We need physicists in this world. Oh yes, we need their ability to come up with solutions that we can use engineers to work on. But they're not versed in politics, in sociology, in societal studies. It's an assumption that they are making. And sadly, it's not a good one at all. Overall, I half agree with this paper, I half don't. Yes, we agree. Absolutely. We need to lower the consumption of fossil fuels. We need to come up with better ways to power things. Solar cells are great, but try to get one put on your roof and it's just such a runaround, it's not even worth the time to consider. Wind farms, there's places I'd say that they're worth it, but they're not ideal. Especially ask the birds about whether they're a good solution for our energy process. Fission, which is our current nuclear reactors, are not as bad as people make it out to be. They are correct that they remain dangerous for thousands of years. They are correct that there are disadvantages, but that's because of the fuel, uranium. If you switch to a thorium reactor, which uses basically the same technology that's in the CANDU system, except with a little bit of plutonium, a lot of that goes away. But people don't want thorium reactors because they want breeder reactors. In other words, uranium reactors that make plutonium. Because what can they use plutonium in? Bombs. And that is the ultimate truth. Nuclear energy is so dangerous because they want bombs. If you take away the desire to make bombs, you can make it incredibly safe, and while it will be radioactive, the waste product won't be nearly as bad. As far as the economic side goes, that University of Oregon needs to go back to the drawing board. Nothing what they said makes any sense. And it's not going to benefit you or me or that little darling girl in Somalia who's just wanting to find out more about being a doctor or being a nurse, or whatever the heck she wants to do with her life. Maybe be a physicist. I don't know. Because she's made up entirely in her head, so put on her anything that you like. Maybe she wants to become Batman. So with that, we wish to thank you for joining us on the Silverlight Show. If you enjoyed this show, please like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to click the bell icon down below so that way you can be notified for any future episodes. and we hope you have a fantastic day.